can you give us an update on the advice and the warnings that are in place at the moment?
So thanks, Peter. We saw the Nepean River peak at a bit over 10 metres overnight, which is a little bit higher than the floods that we've seen in the past. The SES and the Bureau of Meteorology has been talking a lot about the 1961 flood, so we've gone a little bit above that. We've seen some evacuations of low-lying areas of the Penrith, particularly between Mulgoa Road and the Nepean River, and I'd be encouraging everyone to stay connected to SES, to the Bureau of Meteorology. We're seeing a little bit of respite with the river down about a metre, but there's still a lot of water that has to make its way through the catchment, so those waters could rise again, and it's so important that people stay connected to those SES and Bureau of Meteorology messages.
Yeah, the SES on the show a short time ago said mirrored that comment that there hasn't been as much rain, which is good, but there is still plenty. Are you getting to the point, Stuart, where you think the worst of it has passed?
No, I think there's a lot more water that will make its way through the catchment, through the dam and down into the Nepean Hawkesbury system, particularly those low-lying areas in and around Hawkesbury, McGrath's Hill, Pitt Town, Wilberforce. Those areas will still see a fair amount of water for a number of days yet, and we could easily see the Nepean River rise again as all of that water that's being caught behind the dam makes its way through the dam, over the top of it and into the river system.
Sounds like you might be worried about all that.
Well, we do live in a location that is alongside rivers. It's a beautiful place to live, but it does come with some risks. We've managed that risk over a number of years now by reducing where people can live, but there's lots of historical locations where development has taken place in Western Sydney pretty much for 200 years, Peter, and they're the low-lying areas that are impacted when we see floods like what we're seeing here at the moment.
So are people now paying the price for that?
Well, I think we've always known that risk has been there, and we've been managing that risk for a long period of time. We also want to continue to mitigate that. The New South Wales government has a plan to increase the dam wall at Warragamba, which would give us more capacity to hold water back. That would, without doubt, reduce the areas that are flooded. It would store more water behind the dam in the event of a flood like we're seeing at the moment, which would give our SES and our emergency services people more chance to evacuate people, but also reduce the locations that would be impacted by flooding.
Do you believe that water should have been released from Warragamba Dam prior to this event?
We would have had to have done that months and months ago, Peter. There's so much water that's coming through the system. If we had have decided a week ago or even a month ago to release water out of the dam with all this rain around, all we would have done was push more water into those low-lying areas. So when this rain event arrived, more water would have arrived. That would have just meant a higher flood in the locations, particularly in that Hawkesbury location. So releasing water before this event would have actually increased the flood, not reduced it. For us to do any impact in reducing floods, we would have had to reduce water months and months, if not almost a year ago.
Okay. What about businesses who have been affected by this, Stuart? I mean, in other electorates, not specifically yours, there had been reports that they just hadn't been able to pay the $30,000 worth of insurance premiums. Obviously, it's too expensive, so they're just going to have to cop whatever happens. Have you got instances like that in your electorate? And if so, what are the options for them other than the federal assistance?
So there is assistance available. Disaster relief announcements have been made. I would encourage people here in New South Wales to jump on the Service New South Wales website so they can get all the immediate information that they need, or contact Service New South Wales directly. We do know that there are a lot of people who are underinsured in this location, particularly across the Penrith and Hawkesbury regions. This is another reason why we want to invest in more flood mitigation to reduce those impacts, because the insurance cost is extremely high.
Yeah, that's right. It's just too high, so it defeats the purpose. You don't blame businesses for not wanting to get insurance.
Well, people can only afford what they can afford,
that's
Peter,
right.
And that's why we're trying to reduce as much impact of these floods as possible. We've improved flood evacuation routes. We've provided more information. We've worked very closely with the insurance industry. But in these high-risk locations, premiums will reflect risk.